That's the transcendent that your soul is looking for. That's the something more and something beautiful and something bigger that something inside of you knows you need. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, while he was dying in Flossenburg concentration camp at the hands of the Nazis, wrote about what it means to give your life to Jesus. And he said, when Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. Like the only way we're ever going to step from where we are into the lives and the futures God has for us is to give our lives to him completely. And that's what God's saying at the very beginning before he was even born. He sent the angel to tell Joseph, you don't get to name this baby names you. You can't name him because you can't tame him. He's king or he's nothing. And so this moment tells us something about Jesus' power, but it also reveals his presence. Like the manner in which he came to be present with us. And I love this so much because it's like God's glory crashing straight into our ordinary. He got the name Jesus, Jesus, Yeshu. And like if we read Matthew 1 out of any context and we didn't know about the culture in which he grew up, we'd be like, how did everybody not know exactly what Jesus was doing? Like how his whole life didn't they know that he was going to die on a cross and save people from their sins? It's literally his name. Salvation comes from God. But the thing is, it was a ton of people's name back then. It was just a really popular name. For one, Joshua was a hero of Hebrew society. And for two, they were living under oppression from the Roman Empire. So there are a lot of people who were desperate on salvation to come from the Lord. So like the name Jesus isn't the modern American equivalent of being named like Percival or Eugene or something like that, Cletus. It's like being named John or Steve. They're everywhere. Jesus just blended in. And I find that fascinating because I think blending in is the last thing we would ever expect from a king or a god. Like the incarnation of Jesus, him stepping out of eternity into the human story is inexplicable by human logic. It's completely unlike anything in any other religion on the face of planet Earth. There is no other God who comes near to us like that. Like in Eastern religions, the divine is this like enlightenment that's so hard to get to, so hard to wrap your mind around. You have to keep striving and fighting for many lifetimes in order to achieve it. And in Western religions, God is so distant, so far off, so different than us, and so powerful that you have to achieve and earn your way up the ladder if you ever want to reach it, but not Jesus. Jesus isn't like that. He comes near. And not only that, but Jesus is different than any other philosophy, including atheism, because we approach him on his terms and not someone else's. In every other religious philosophy in the world, you have some wise, learned sage telling you this is what to do. If you read my book, if you take these steps, if you jump through these hoops, this is how you can earn it. But the fact that Jesus was born in a common place, to a common family and given a common name, I think is a reminder for us that Jesus is not a prophet come to tell us how to find God, but God himself come to find us. That's part of what God was communicating about his identity, his love, and his nearness, and giving him this ordinary name for ordinary people. Not Augustus, like this emperor who was desperate for the world to see his majesty, but Jesus. Salvation comes from the Lord as a message to a whole bunch of people who are just desperate for God's glory to crash into and transform their ordinary. Like Jesus' name signifies the way in which he came to be present with you and me. And so, like, no matter where you're at this morning, no matter what your life looks like or where you are on your spiritual journey, just know this: God sees you. He knows your name. He came to be with you. You are not too small and too insignificant for the divine to come near. That's what the name Jesus means. It signifies his presence. And then the last thing I think the name Jesus signifies for us is his purpose. And this one seems like the most self-explanatory of the three. His name is Salvation Comes from the Lord, and he came to save his people from their sins. That's what the angel said. But I think it's easy for us, especially, again, because it's a familiar story, to gloss over that last little phrase of what he came to save people from. See, the Israelites in the first century were desperate for salvation. They were looking to be saved. It's just not from sin. They thought they were pretty good to go with God. They're like, yeah, we make some mistakes, we do some wrong stuff, but God has this whole system. We go kill a goat or something, and then we're fine with God. But what we really need to be saved from is like political oppression and economic struggling. What we really want is to be free and self-governing and wealthy. Like, they read the Old Testament, all these prophecies about Emmanuel coming to ransom captive Israel, and they're like, he's going to ransom us from political and economic capture, and they just didn't think sin was that big of a deal. And what we know is that over the course of Jesus' whole life, nobody really got it, that he was on a way bigger mission to do a way bigger thing. Because in Acts 1, like right before the ascension, right before he left for heaven, his disciples looked at him and they're like, hey, Jesus, is this the part where you overthrow Caesar Augustus and you become king and then we become all the king's men and then everything goes good and we get really prosperous and we get really rich? Are you going to set up David's kingdom again now? And Jesus just looks at it, he's like, I died. I came back from the dead and this is what you think I was doing? He just takes off for heaven. That's it. That's the last discussion Jesus has with this. He's like, really? That's what you think I'm here? I'm out of here. And he just leaves, right? And I think we're in the same boat as the disciples too much of the time. We'd love for economic flourishing. We'd love to have political power, but we're not that convinced our sin matters, right? Back then, the first century Hebrews said, I'll kill a bull. And now we're like, I said a prayer a long time ago. So my sin isn't that big of a deal. It doesn't matter to Jesus that much. But you guys, sin is such a huge deal. Jesus stepped in. Like, that's the reason he came. Because sin cuts us off from our Creator and from our community and from the lives we were created to live. And there's not a single thing we can do to fix it. There's nothing we can do to make it right. And that, again, is what makes Jesus different than any other prophet or any other religion or any other belief in the entire history of the world, including secular humanism. This is the modern version of atheism, because all of those beliefs give us hoops to jump through, give us tasks to do to try and make right what we've made wrong. And Jesus comes along and says, it's not like that, you can't. And you know you can't. And I know you can't. Deep down in your soul, you know that you cannot unhurt all the people that you've hurt. You cannot set right all the things that you've set wrong, and you cannot earn your way back to a God who feels so incredibly distant from you. But what I came to tell you is that you don't have to. You don't have to earn your way to God. God came to you. That's what I'm all about, to exchange my life for your life, to do what you could not do, to pay a price that you could not pay with my blood. The wages of your sin is death, but my blood is going to bring freedom and forgiveness forever and reconcile you to God. I came because you couldn't, but I could. Like, that's what it means. Like, Jesus' name means that Jesus was born on a kamikaze mission to give his life in exchange for yours. And you guys, that's the transcendent that your soul is looking for. That's the something more and something beautiful and something bigger that something inside of you knows you need.